Welcome back to the channel. We are down to the last month of the year, and that means in approximately 6 months I will be 26 years old, and that will be another revolution around the sun. That being said, I did not want to miss the opportunity to reflect on my life and how it's been so far with 25 years of existence. So today, what we're going to do is to check out my bucket list of my quarter life crisis issues. Like, subscribe, share this video, send your feedback. So 25 years old, I'm officially at the quarter life, even assuming that the average lifespan is still 100 years old. I'm sure the average lifespan now is much longer because of technology and medicine. Yeah, with respect to tradition, I think I am abiding by the norms of hitting your life at 25. I'm kidding. Of just questioning everything at 25 years old. So here we are. Today I'm going to share with you just 4 of my existential crises, existential issues at 25. Number 1, I'm not sure if I'm an adult or not, and that matters. Not too long ago, by not too long ago, I mean like 4th year high school, okay, maybe freshman year college, I genuinely thought and wanted to retire at the age of 28 years old. I genuinely wanted to retire at 28 years old, which leaves me with just 3 years left. Insanity. I really thought I would have a life for myself by then. Back then, when I thought about it, I thought 28 is a good number to get married and to be successful. And at 29 onwards, I just want to drive around my kids and bring them to school, pick up my wife at her work because she's gonna be a career woman. I'm gonna be at home cleaning and cooking and doing all the house husband shenanigan things that no one expects me to do. But that was the plan. That was the ideal. And I guess for a long time, that made sense because the only landmark in my mind was to graduate school, and then once you graduate, get a job and get rich, and yeah, what's up, we're done. But I guess as with anyone, upon graduation, life really slaps you in the face and tells you, hey, what you read about me and heard about me isn't true. And things are a little more complicated. Getting rich isn't a 2-step thing, unless you're already born rich, in which case, whatever, privilege. It's just difficult. There are many things that you have to balance on an everyday basis that before just came naturally. For example, when you're in school, you didn't really have to make time for your friends because you're just always with your friends. Whereas as a young professional, you really sacrifice some things. You sacrifice sleep, sacrifice the friends, sacrifice work, sacrifice family, or something else. But it really feels like you just can't get a good balance of everything. What I'm struggling most with is getting a sense of progress in my life. The landmark was school, and when that was checked off, the landmark was graduating. And when that was checked off, it was just wide open. Initially, it was very simple. It was just get a job, get rich, done. Cha-ching. And the big end goal was to have a family. But as the world is now, number 1, we're not even sure if there will be a world by 2030, if I'm not mistaken, or 20 something along that lines. Climate change is real. All the big corporations are ignoring it. Governments in the world, except for some like Switzerland, I think, probably. I would bet Switzerland. Most others are not doing much about it. And to have children, to come into basically a dying world, you're not even sure if he or she will live to get to appreciate and experience the world in its totality, because by then, I don't know, maybe 60% of the world would have been underwater already. So that's number one. Number two is on an everyday basis, right? What is a good reason to have a child? Growing up, it just seemed like I was convinced that it's the norm, it's the natural thing to do. But if you really pause and just think, what value or what purpose does this fulfill in today's society? It's not an easy answer. And I know some people say that, oh, because I have so much love to give, I'm going to have a child. And there's an argument for adoption. And there's also the argument for, so what? It doesn't have to be a child. There's that. And there's also just, in this economy, really, like, can you even afford to have a child? Can you even afford the delivering a baby in the first place? Expenses in this world are crazy. I don't think enough people appreciate how much childcare is. Not that I swear. But this isn't to say that my desire for it has disappeared or is overwhelmed by all these logical reasonings I have. I want to be a good father. Let me get that out there. I want to be a good father. But again, it's just not as simple as simply wanting or choosing how many anymore. Part of the struggle in seeing some progress in my life is, and this is probably partly due to the pandemic, I think I've just regressed to my younger ways. I work when I have to work, and when I'm done at work, I'm playing Valorant or Dota 2, as I did in high school, although I played Heroes of New Earth in high school. What I once thought were childish things, or things that you only did as a student, are precisely the things that I'm doing right now. And they're not bad. And I realized there needs to be time and space for those things in life. I can't help but wonder if the world were more normal, if the circumstances were a tad more favorable, the time that I spend in these things, what would I actually be doing? What would I recognize as valid options to spend my time in? And I know this is maybe controversial to some people. They say, you're just 25, you have so much time, and everyone's running their own race. But I just find myself asking, what race am I running? And if I am in a race, where's the finish line? What does it look like? This is the first thing on my bucket list, because I feel like I'm stuck in a loop of having so much time ahead of me, while at the same time not having enough time. I want to do so many things, and it feels like I have an eternity ahead of me to do all of those things. But equally, I feel like I'm running out of time, with the world inevitably ending, with the world basically killing itself right now. What used to feel like an eternity realistically feels just like the next 10 years. And to think that the next 10 years we would be still fighting with the pandemic or whatever else this crazy world brings about. Yes, I have time, but it doesn't feel like there's enough of it. Number 2 and number 3 are quite related. So number 2 is about staying or leaving the Philippines. And number 3, if you know me, you know my big goal in life is to have my own school, fully blown out from preschool to grad school. And I'd want all the students, so a delusional thinking, all the students to be scholars. Just like myself, I am eternally grateful for the opportunity to not worry about money and just study. Well, kind of worry about grades because that's why I'm on scholarship. But I think the burden of not thinking about resources and just focusing on what I have to do is something that I want to share with everyone. And actually, I want to kick it up a notch. I don't want grades to be standard for receiving scholarships. Rather, I just want it to be, well, you deserve an education. Obviously, there are many nuances to this, right? But I think what I want to come across is education's important, and good education should be accessible to everyone. Hopefully, I become a part of that. So anyway, why do these two connect? I think I have a very strong, now moderate, tie or connection to the Philippines precisely because of my education. My school basically hammered this idea that I should be a part of nation building. And I realized the importance of that. And for the longest time, I genuinely agree, because there are a lot of people in the Philippines that can't speak for themselves, figuratively, that can't speak for themselves, can fight for themselves, and are basically forgotten. And unless someone really takes the initiative to step up and speak for them and fight for them and act on their behalf, nothing's gonna happen. And I still see that role being important today, especially today with all the craziness that's happening in this country, aka our government. There is a more urgent need for people to do something about the many issues surrounding the country, and more importantly, the different faces and the many names that are affected on a daily basis because of the many layered problem of poverty and corruption and just living, I suppose. So I've always envisioned planting my stick here in the Philippines and leaving it just a tad bit better when I die. And that's why it ties into number 3. And number 3 is the method by which I envision I will leave my legacy or my impact to Filipinos. And that's to have my own school. But looking at it now, it's a tad idealistic. I envision a very personalized educational approach. What I mean is, I've always wondered, why are all courses finishable in 4 years? Like, you're seriously telling me that the skills and time and effort required to complete an art degree is equal to a science degree? And this isn't saying that one is harder than the other. I'm just saying, how are they the same when they're intrinsically different things? And this doesn't even take into account the learner, him or herself. What if it just takes me 2 years to master these 4 subjects? Why do I have to learn them in a year? What purpose is the 4 years serving? And we often hear this in our schools that, oh, fail so you can learn. But be honest, do we really have opportunities to learn from our mistakes in school? I don't think so. Our evaluations are tests. Well, yeah, tests. When we do fail in them, regardless if it's primary school, secondary, or college, you just failed and you move on to the next stop. Maybe someone can get away with saying, oh, you should self-learn or whatever. Are you serious? I think that schools, as they are built and being run now, just don't care about learning from mistakes. It's just a banner statement that they're making. I'm speaking of this from a relatively privileged perspective, because I did well. But it really pains me to see people who, actually even myself, to study long hours, study long hours and have their effort be rewarded by failing grades. At what point does your input actually get the output that you deserve? I don't think schools care about that. They're gonna tell you that grades don't matter. Of course it matters. What are you saying? Of course it matters. I can go on a whole rant about schools. That's how I envision leaving my legacy, or at least how I envision making an impact in the Philippines. Now it's very complicated. Number 1, it's very difficult to live here. I think as a country, we have fighters. We have fighters who are trying to do better and give the quality of life that every Filipino deserves, or every human being deserves. But that's not everyone. And the systemic culture, practices, behaviors of government, just us, I guess, as people, don't necessarily build up to an environment that allows for flourishing. If I'm going to be very specific about it, I think that corruption in the Philippine government is inevitable. In fact, I think it's part of the standard operating procedure. And people have come to just accept that. We vote the same doofuses every year, and we allow the same doofuses to run every year. Things haven't changed. And even if we assume that all of those are solved, when it comes to education, at least as far as I know, I will always be limited by the curriculum set by the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, the very curriculum I don't like to begin with. The very curriculum I have a problem with. So I also don't know how that's going to work out. This is very important to me because unlike most people, having my own school here has always been my North Star. So for me to be questioning it at a point when I should more or less start investing in it or start putting resources and time and attention into making that goal come to fruition, it's very critical. Often I just ask myself, so what are we gonna do now? Number 4, and the last on my bucket list, is, of course, one of my favorite topics ever, love. Depending on how much you know me, or how much I allowed you to know me, you may know me as a hopeless romantic, or accuse me of being a ferocious flirt, or neither, just, a normal person. But I'm also at that point in time when I'm wondering, what is love? Like, seriously, what does it take? And I think from where I stand, I see it falling under two pockets. So one is where you just click and you just match, and it all just freaking aligns in the movies. And then there's those that you really work for it. You communicate your problems, you figure out solutions together, you call each other out when he or she is not adapting to the expectations. It becomes a labor, a labor of love. Obviously, the dichotomy can be wrong. Just hear me out. When I encounter someone, I don't know if it's prudent to try and see if we click or just match. If it's prudent to look for the one written in the stars, for my soulmate, which, by the way, apparently doesn't always have to be the person you end up marrying, for the one that just gets you. Or find that this is someone that's moderately cliquey with a little jagged edges, and then just work it out, just smooth it over time. And before I dive deeper, let me come with a disclaimer that I do agree any and every form of relationship that involves love will involve work. And that's fine. I concede that. What I will contest though is that sometimes there are relationships where it just takes less work and feels less like work than others. There are those that you will really grit your teeth, cry your eyes out, and there are those that just make sense and just click. So that's my dilemma. How do I approach love? How do you approach love? I'm of the thinking that let's get the middle. Find someone who's 60, 70, 80% click with you, and then you smooth out the rest of the 20%. But how you do the clicking, how you know if it's the clicking, what to look for in the clicking, different story entirely. I think what I want is just, I don't mind that love can be difficult. I just mind that sometimes it doesn't have to be that difficult. So that's my top 4 bucket list of my quarter life crises. What do you think about my issues? You share the same ones? Let me know what you think in the comments. What are your quarter life issues? Even if you're not at your quarter life, what are you dealing with? Let's talk about it. Share. Before this all goes negative, I'm sharing these in hopes that for the people who are going through the same thing or denying the fact that they're going through some things, to remind you that it's okay and it happens. So it's fine. That we can go through this. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Tackle it one by one. Write it down. See how it goes. It's also an invitation for you not to carry it all by yourself. Call a friend. Ask for help. Google advice. Especially today, being open and vulnerable about the things we go through is more important, and especially today, I know there are more people who are very happy to listen and reach out and help us. This is Jim. Thanks for watching. Live audaciously and tirelessly chase the best version of yourself. Hang in there. We're all in this together.